this difference between inner guidance when it's inner guidance and when it's just one of those temptations is that impersonal nature of that guidance. It doesn't defend anything, it doesn't want anything, it doesn't have any stake, it doesn't have dog in the race. And then it's a true inner guidance. And before that, it's simply smart to seek that guidance anywhere where one feels attracted to, even if one will make mistakes. Because it has, that in itself has wisdom. It's better to be wronged by following guidance when laying one's predicament in front of someone than following one's own blind, supposedly inner guidance, because it fortifies something fundamentally what meant to melt.
And I devoted my time, since I did not find a guru, someone to listen within and to be guided. And it felt like it's always inner guidance. Like even if I'm here listening to you, it's what reflects within me. It's still inner guidance when I'm listening to you, when I'm listening to anything. And so the subject of inner guidance versus following someone outside is something that I'm thinking about. If you can elaborate on the subject of inner guidance.
Well, we can make it very simple so as to have a very clear understanding. Providing there are no abstractions of any kind, if awakening is powerful enough, then what happens is in the unfoldment that is accompanied through tremendous realignment of pranic currents, when the expansion of consciousness in Kundalini enters Sushumna at any time, it's unabstracted, and there are no, let's say, debris of any kind, no muck to deal with, no psychic tendencies or some of that material which need to be processed at any of its centers. Very quickly it rises to a place where that self-guidance in abundance. So in principle, self-guidance is a byproduct of profound awakening. It should be. It would be there, providing the aforementioned circumstances are favorable. So there's nothing that there, as it were, abstracts that unfoldment. But that's not the case. Not with everyone. And that's what makes it so perplexing. In our day and age, a lot is spoken about the self-guidance. To begin with, it's also linked to the continued toing and froing, right? Continued, let's say, attempts at reconciling, let's say, what collectively shared current values of, let's say, Western democratically based society, or so-called democratically based society, as we're finding nowadays, is all crumbling down. Democracy exists only for privileged, and even then, it's a very, very questionable affair. Yeah, there are degrees of democracy, certainly. So in that current social economical climate we find ourselves, everything to do with an external authority brings a certain degree of psychological discomfort because it's a collectively shared consensus. Any authority figure is always carries these elements of being thrusted into a position, inferior position of someone who, by virtue of whatever set of circumstances, is dependent on that authority. You see? And since the values are placed on individual in our society, it's a culturally shared consensus. Whatever the Greeks had in their minds when they came with the idea of demos, that's one thing. But how it all developed and how it all came today, I mean, I'm not going to go back and repeat myself that in the name of democracy, 2 million Iraqis were bombed, for example, right? We're not talking about weapons of mass destruction that was never found. It's not the point. The point is that we go at great length, culturally speaking, to justify any act in the name of it has to have ideology. See? Ideology, ideologically. It's all linked one way or another. Linked to how that what you're addressing here, what you're bringing out into the open and asking me to reflect. Because it is that dynamic, that inner guidance, the so-called guru within, almost as it became viral with the rise, before even TikTok and Instagram, with the rise of the Facebook, the guru within was like taking minds by storm. And any authority out there was meant to be viewed with, well, it's a thing of the past. We had great gurus, they all came, they all became very, very well known, celebrated. They created a lot of mess. They were messy. They were not speak and span in their affairs, you know? So we don't want gurus anymore. We don't want spiritual authorities. Now, parents were more naive in that respect, maybe. So they thought, well, it's fun to have a guru. Everyone went to India to search for one. Those lucky who didn't have to go to India, their gurus came to them. They found them. See? But there is something else we're speaking here too. Something else. Something which all of us, sooner or later, would have to examine, would have to reconcile. That what culturally shared and causes its impositions on all of us in equal measure, all of us, is at place because it's the prevalent, let's say, collective tendency to mistrust authority. After all, we went through the eras of where the authorities, those who were given the position of utmost power, abused it to the ultimate level, right? Dictatorship is an example of the utmost abuse of political power. And we can name examples of these people. But these people are actually scapegoats, because the real thing is not there. These powers are delegated to these people willingly. None of these people usurp that power. It's much more interesting and intricate and much more sophisticated if one is willing to look into this, to unravel and to see truly the underlying seams of how it all held together. So this distrust is there in all of us. Distrust to the position of the authority that anyone can embody, anyone can exemplify. So therefore, in that widespread modern, popularized ideas of, let's say, gurus within, became very, very quickly an adopted notion, because it fits that very principle where the individual is placed at the epicenter of everything, because that's what civilizational consensus tilts towards, a satisfaction of an individual. See? Whereas this is subject to, of course, polemics and speculations. What is it really at the expense of what? What holds us together? What truly unifies us together? What truly makes us feel connected? See? So there are many people who have dedicated their entire life to scrutinize, to dig deep down, to unravel all this whole thing, to see and point out that we live at the final phase of this individuation, at the final phase of these individually based values that society accepted as the ultimate goal of civilization. We could see Elon Musk is that. It's this pompous guy who just happens to be extremely wealthy, who tilts. One morning he feels that, next morning he feels that. Today we fly to the Mars, tomorrow we will deny internet to this country, we'll give it to that. It's all like whatever, ultimate, you see? But it's only an example. It's nothing to do with Musk. It simply exemplifies the state of affairs. You see? Where does that leave us? Because seems like I'm totally departed from where the question came from. But I want us to connect these seemingly different threads so that we can understand where is the source of that inner guidance. And as what I like very much is how when you started speaking, this is a very clear understanding on your part that whatever is being said is only making sense if it in the first place in sync and in resonance with your own understanding, which means in sync with your own truth, whatever that truth happens to be, isn't it? So what is it that makes inner guidance a true inner guidance? And where do we draw the line between the guidance coming from someone versus that guidance verified and in alignment with my own guidance? So therefore, immediately I answered from the perspective of internal process. If the awakening is powerful enough, then that inner guidance will be in abundance, providing there are no abstractions. Because if there are abstractions, there are possibilities that will enter the hall of the mirrors, as a metaphor, where we will be bumping against the cold surface of the mirror by, effectively speaking, confusing that what seems like a real deal for, in fact, something reflecting us back from that repository of these psychic tendencies that are now steered, playing themselves out. And I've seen that in so many cases. People were going on a rampage to self-destruction and telling that this is how I want. because I'm free. I'm totally free. See? I can self-destruct myself because I'm free. And this is an interesting thing, you see? Because when one is free, paradoxically enough, it becomes a balancing act. It becomes a graceful walk. It never tilts to any extreme degrees. It never prompted to the extremes. You see? It neither wants to be holy, nor is it feels somehow less in any way if one feels that what is considered to be less holy as an act in certain circles simply natural because it is subject to personal preferences. And this is where we run into a lot of these tendencies, including the whole, what I call a hall of mirrors. All you see, it's enough to have just a one reflection. And as soon as there are other, it just breaks into the myriad whole hall. But it's nothing. It's, every movement replicates itself ad infinitum. Have you seen that effect in the cupboards sometimes? When old-fashioned cupboards had these mirrors, and you open it like, and suddenly there's like a tunnel of this, like, you know, and none of them show anything different. They show the same thing. It seems like it's rich variety, but it's not. It reflects just one thing and mirrors immediately any movement. So what makes it tricky here and what requires here a sincerity is to understand where that inner guidance is the inner guidance and where it is a preference that is somehow unconsciously rears its ugly head only to keep us bound on the account of I know better. How many times I had people who, forgive me, do all the Guru Shmuru things only to tell me they know better anyway. Because when they asked for guidance and guidance was offered, suddenly it all turned 180 degrees into an enmity. And not just any enmity, like a real act of, you know, now I will tell you everything I think. Why? One moment is like all this, you know, including like down to the ridiculous. Can I touch your feet? You know? No, don't. I don't want my feet to be touched unless you know what you're doing. And press it. Oh yeah, keep going. Oof, easy here. And then suddenly all that is out of the window. See? But the most important thing here to know is that when the guidance comes, that guidance has impersonal nature. It's almost like the distinction between the true inner guidance and that hall of mirror, that kind of like playing tricks there, that canonical kind of, right? In the Bertolucci's film with young, skinny Keanu Reeves playing Buddha, little Buddha, remember? And he's sitting there under the tree, and suddenly he has his own effigy sits right. Who remembers little Buddha? Huh? Okay, thank God some of you. No little Buddha. Bernardo Bertolucci. Early 90s. Maybe 92. I even remember when they were deciding who would be casted as a little Buddha. They didn't settle on the Keanu Reeves right away. There were some other actors, you wouldn't believe who they considered. Anyway, film was a flop, let's face it. But it was an attempt, really attempt. I much more prefer Under the Sheltering Sky with Malkovich and Deborah Winger. That's a beauty. Keanu Reeves there, and he's sitting in meditation. He would not have it. He's there to realize it all. And so and suddenly he has this figure in front of him. Keanu Reeves, just as if he's looking at his twin flame, or not twin flame, at his, what is it, twin born, right? His own effigy, his own whatever. So he realizes that he's being tested. See? He's being given a reflection of himself. So he dismisses that. And immediately what was there, reflecting this angelic look of Keanu Reeves, become this horrendous monster. Like, oh, how dare you? Like, ugly thing here. Of course, it's in the language of the cinema. Attempts were made to convey these things. We're talking about 30 years ago. It was a brave attempt to bring something else. And this is very well known. It's very well known that encounters, this is like the last temptation of Christ, again, this canonical encounter of the Christ in the desert, right? The last temptations when he's tempted, right? By the devil who tries to dissuade him as last temptations. This difference between inner guidance, when it's inner guidance, and when it's just one of those temptations, is that impersonal nature of that guidance. It doesn't defend anything, it doesn't want anything, it doesn't have any stake, it doesn't have dog in the race. And then it's a true inner guidance. And before that, it's simply smart to seek that guidance anywhere where one feels attracted to, even if one will make mistakes. Because that in itself has wisdom. It's better to be wronged by following guidance when laying one's predicament in front of someone than following one's own blind, supposedly inner guidance, because it fortifies something fundamentally what meant to melt. You see? So therefore, from that point of view, no disservice is done. One will mature, one will become more discriminate. I've heard this teacher this time, that time. I've heard that guide, that guidance, this guidance. I felt it worked. I felt it has merit. I don't feel it anymore. Let me go and find out elsewhere. There's nothing wrong with that. See? You are guided. You are adjusting here. You will be taken until that guidance will have this moment of internal clarity. And it is accompanied, it's beautiful as well. It has that beauty, harmony. Beauty and harmony are impersonal. They are universal. These are qualities. Just as the constants they are irrespective of tastes. It's not about I like that yellow against that, When something harmonious, it makes the whole environment vibrate with that harmony. So inner guidance is not a straightforward thing. And when these conversations were unfolding many years ago, and the rise of the social media platforms, and all this inner guru thing, to me it became apparent that this will no doubt confuse a lot of sincere seekers who will simply go on the bandwagon of that tendency. But of course, at the same time, nothing new about that. Because also at the very same time, this made other people, young people in the, I would say, generations, no, I still want to seek guidance. I want to be guided, even if to give confirmation that where I am is good and sound. Even that, you see, in every domain it's like that. Why not in a spiritual domain? Why not in the domain of the psyche? When it comes to the domain of the soul, you just need to, of course, not to become too polygamous. You have to have some degree of consistency of the purpose. Not digging here, not water next digging. No, dig a little bit. See, maybe there is water. You need to dig deep enough. Digging, and then tired digging. It was just that left, not much. Just one more digging is found, and all the thirst is quenched. The whole thing is turned into oasis. So, there is also something beautiful in terms of that guidance. Guidance that one receives, you see, or reconfirmation, or reflection. If one only resorts to one's inner guidance, one needs to be like a titan. One needs to be really to have that. And my heart goes to those who have that. You see? When one consciously decides that the only guidance can come from within, and I will get to the bottom of that, but not in the hustle bustle of this world. One would need to spend a lot of time in true silence. And guidance will come. It has no choice. Because all the impulses are now converted inwards. So sooner or later prana will realign. And this will melt out of the system. And what will shine forth is what always illuminated in the first place.